I literally just finished reading Darkblade Assassin by Andy Peloquin, and all I can say is, wow, does that feel like an 80s action movie thrown into a dark fantasy world. That was so fun. If you've watched my channel before, you know I'm a massive fan of Andy's writing. His Grimdark Queen of Thieves trilogy is one of my all-time favourites. I've absolutely blasted through his books this year. And Darkblade is Andy's most epic series. This is his biggest series, his longest books. And it was something I just knew I had to dive into. Darkblade is also the first book Andy ever wrote. It was described to me as John Wick meets fantasy, which sold me so easily. So what is Darkblade Assassin about? All in Varamis know the legend of the hunter, relentless, immortal, death-walking, the greatest assassin who ever lived. Pay the master killer his due, and the hunter will execute any target, carry out any contract, no matter how impossible. But when the Bloody Hand crime syndicate harms the innocents under his protection, they foolishly make an enemy of the one man they can't afford to anger. The price of the hunter's vengeance is high, paid in blood and eternal damnation. Not even an army of crooks, cutthroats and demonic creatures of nature can stand in his way. He's far more than just one man. He's the keeper damn hunter of Varamis. So simply put, it's John Wick. It's a revenge story. A crime syndicate hurts someone close to a hunter, and he goes on his John Wick revenge story. He takes out this entire mob. He takes on the entire syndicate. So this is a very action-heavy book. Our half-demon assassin with his magical dagger is taking on a lot of crooks. There's a lot of fighting in this book. This is book one of a series, so we also get a lot of world building and a lot of history of the world. And we get a lot of just seeing someone get knocked down, thrown to ground endlessly, but just constantly just getting back up, trying one more time. This is someone who's just full bent on revenge and no one's going to get in their way. So it's really fun reading. And one thing Andy does so well with all of his books is his writing is just so easy to read. His prose is more rich than Sanderson's, but you can fly through it just as quick. And he does a great job setting the tone. So you're just constantly gripped, hooked, and there's always things happening. His chapters are very short. On my Kindle, they're all about 8 minutes. So probably like 5 minutes for most people. So being that John Wick sort of story, this book takes place in just one city. But being the first book of an epic fantasy series, it also sets up what's going to be happening in the rest of the series, which will be exploring more of the world, which I'm super excited to see. And the only issue I had with this entire book was that it was perhaps a bit too long. Some things felt like they recurred a couple times, and the page count was about 650, where I felt like it would have been a bit better served to be about 500. But I understand that certain things had to be put in place to set up the later books. And I'd also just read Words of Radiance before this, so I wasn't prepared for a big book. But with that criticism, the next 3 books in this series are all shorter, so I think that gets fixed. And you gotta understand, this is someone's first book he ever wrote. It's not gonna be perfect, just like Malice. How great is The Faithful and the Fallen? And how often does Malice get criticized? And the same with The Bound and the Broken. How great is Of War and Ruin? But of Blood and Fire? Yeah, it's not great. But Darkblade, probably stronger than both of those books. So I can't wait to see where it goes. Now, the Darkblade series. What is it? Where's it go? Well, there's 9 books currently out. There's going to be 15, but the first 4 books are their own arc of themselves. So you can read 1, read it as a standalone, or you can read 4, read that as a series that stands by itself, or you can read all 15 as they come out. So is Darkblade where you should start with Andy Peloquin's works? Maybe. Andy would recommend you start with Darkblade. I'm going to recommend you start with Queen of Thieves. Now, Queen of Thieves is a trilogy that takes place in a city near Varamis, and we're following a rival crime gang to the Bloody Hand, which we see in Darkblade. We're following the girl Viola as she is sold into the Knights Guild and trained to become a thief. This is a fast-paced, high-steamed, grimdark story. There's 3 books, they're all about 350 to 400 pages. In the first one, we see Viola in her academy years. So we go through her 9 years, learning her thief skills, and then putting them into use, doing a pretty cool heist at the end to get into the guild. And then in book 2, we get to see her perform the biggest heist the guild has ever seen. And then in book 3, we basically see her single-handedly have to save the entire guild and the entire city from the Bloody Hand, which we see in Darkblade. Then there's a bridge book called Traitor's Fate that is set between the Queen of Thieves trilogy and Darkblade. And it is the first half Viola's POV, the second half Hunter's POV. And it sets up the events that take place in Darkblade. So I highly recommend that you start with Queen of Thieves, get hooked. It's super dark, it's super dark, but it's super fun, super fast paced, super gripping, and then it will set up Darkblade perfectly, and you'll know how good a writer Andy is as you get to see his more experienced works before you go to his first book he wrote, even though it's still fantastic and I still love it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you jump straight into Andy's works after watching this. Please comment down below your favourite indie fantasy book, and please comment down below your favourite dark fantasy book, your favourite assassin-based book. Let me know what I need to check out next, and have a great day, guys.